just your average everyday trucker, keeping it real. I'm your host, Chris Blodgett, and you're listening to Real Talk Tuesday.
This week's topic is going to be people that throw their weight around trying to force their decisions on other families when they really don't have the power to do it. This is episode 142. Hey guys, welcome back. As always, appreciate you being here. So, before we get into this week's topic, I kind of wanted to detour a little bit. Because within the past couple weeks, how we covered the Titanic and the topic about if it hit the iceberg head on, would it have stayed afloat? And according to the that kind of the documentary or whatever, they said they showed the animated recreation, I guess, showing that like if it hit it head on, the whole front end would have smashed in, but it would have stayed afloat because it was less than 4 or less watertight compartments. And my thought was, well, yeah, but if the whole front end is smashed in, then that's different than being flooded. So I still question that. I'm not, but so before going to hit record for this episode, I did a Google search on my computer, and I said if a ship hit an iceberg head on, would the watertight door still keep it afloat or keep it from flooding or something? And one of the results, like if a ship, and I didn't even put the Titanic, it said if a ship hit an iceberg. And so one of the Google research, or the Google search results that came up, said if a ship like the Titanic hit an iceberg head on, the watertight doors would have helped prevent immediate sinking. The collision would have flooded only a few compartments, potentially allowing the ship to remain afloat for a longer time. The design of the Titanic included watertight bulkheads, which were intended to contain flooding and prevent the ship from sinking. However, the impact would have caused significant damage, and the flooding would have progressed if the doors were not closed quickly. Ultimately, while the watertight doors could have provided some time for evacuation, the catastrophic damage from the iceberg would have likely led to the ship sinking anyway. And then, scroll down to a couple other search results. I'm like, why are you okay? Like, it's like I click on a search result, and for whatever reason, it has that little box. You have to like check this little box to prove you're a human. And I'm like, why are you? I'm not. I'm going to freaking. I'm doing a freaking Google search. Like, why are you? Why do I have to verify? So this, and what can I say? Sorry about the repeat of a little bit into the Titanic topics, but what can I say? Like I said, I've been fascinated by the whole, the historic event and whatnot. But so on this search, it said, could the Titanic have stayed afloat a bit longer if she kept moving, either in forward or reverse? Okay, I didn't even. That's not what the search result on the actual, when it showed all the different results. That's not what the topic actually said. So I'm surprised that when I come to this page, it has a completely different question. So I'll repeat that really quick. Could the Titanic have stayed afloat a bit longer if she kept moving, either in forward or reverse? And starts out with, I was reading this question, was Titanic's captain's decision correct? Commented about, or so-and-so commented about a Russian vessel keeping itself afloat by going in reverse, using hydrodynamic pressure to keep its damaged bow high enough to prevent fatal flooding. This got me wondering. My main questions. The Titanic stopped not long after it collided with the iceberg. Could she have stayed afloat a bit longer if she kept moving, either in forward or reverse? How much longer or shorter, as the case may be? Would moving have had a net beneficial effect? For example, would the benefits of moving be outweighed by an increased rate of flooding due to the flowing water further widening the gash, or a reduced rate of pumping because less steam was available to be diverted to the pumps? Which, I guess when it said gash, I guess this site was probably made, based on the information that they thought that there was like a 300-foot tear in the side of the ship. Said, what are all the phenomena that could have an effect on this scenario? And says, actually, it would have been sufficient to simply remain on course and hit the iceberg head on. I guess that's where we're coming up with the topic that, So, actually, it would have been sufficient to simply remain on course and hit the iceberg head on, as then only a single compartment would have flooded. But again, when they showed the animation, it was more than a compartment. Like, a couple compartments at least got crushed in or whatever. So it's like, oh. Then, of course, the guy responds, I know that. My question is about what could have been done after the collision. So it was like, interesting question. I suppose one should compare several scenarios. 1, lie still. 2, going forward, either straight or hard to port or hard to starboard. 3, go in reverse. The rate at which water enters the ship is, to first order, proportional to the pressure differential. Lower the pressure and live longer. Maybe even long enough for the Carpathia to come and rescue you. If you think about the bow wave of the ship, its presence tells you that pressure builds up in the front of the ship. Titanic could not turn hard enough to port to pull a void on the starboard side. So I don't think any of option 2 is viable. This leaves the question whether option 3 would allow the bow to come relatively out of the water. I honestly think that once they realized they were surrounded by icebergs, nobody would have much stomach for trying to go full steam astern, not very fast, with only 2 of the props turning the right way in an attempt to change the equation of mass. There were simply small gashes by far below the waterline where the rivets popped due to the stress of the impact. Based on investigation of the wreck, this is roughly what they might have looked like. And of course, it shows kind of like a little little picture, I guess, little animated drawing or whatever, shows a couple of little small lines under the water line or whatever. Uh, the draft of the ship was about 34 feet, 10 meters, putting the deeper gash about 6 meters or so below the waterline. The fractional change in pressure that you could affect by any maneuver to raise the bow or change the profile of the waterline could be at most 2 meters, and it said being generous here, which is the very best case, or which in the very best case would have slowed the sinking by an hour, tops. And in the process, I am not sure what they might have run into going backwards. I hope someone has a hydrodynamic model to put a better confidence interval on my 2 meters tops number. I expect that is very high. As another hypothetical, if the Titanic had some way of distributing its buoyancy, i.e. pumping the incoming water aft, then it might have been possible to trim the bow far enough out of the water by making the hull aft heavy to slow or stop the rate of water intrusion, and then powering up to full speed ahead. Submarines on patrol can perform this trick because they have trim tanks in which ballast water or leaked water can be pumped aft to rise the bow and produce a vertical thrust component which helps bring the sub towards the surface. Titanic didn't have a classic hull, or classic hole, I guess, because it was funny. It's spelled hole, H-O-L-E on the side here. Hull plate, or hole, H-O-W-L-E, and then H-U-L-L plates ruptured along rivet lines, so water entered regardless and will continue. Even full pumps active and closing watertight doors, ships at speed would still carry on water till said compartments flooded. According to full engines running, when ice cold water would have caused a steam explosion, damaging ship even further. What would have possibly saved Titanic was execute hard turn without full reverse, because turbine-driven center screw was incapable of reverse gear. The center propeller moved torrent of flow away while side port and starboard propellers had less surface contact underwater. A fully executed turn with slowed engines ahead, giving them enough leeway to steer away from iceberg, or at least hit it with less force, doing less damage. Other engineers suggest if Titanic hit the iceberg head on, it would have survived catastrophic damage and injuries, but probably would not have sunk. If reverse was maintained and if course was adjusted towards Carpathia in reverse, not only would the 2 hours and 40-minute time it took to sink may have been lengthened by an hour by raising the bow up 6 foot, as expressed above, and shorten the rescue ETA of 4 hours, which left 1,496 in the icy water for at least an hour and 20 minutes, to possibly converging in only 2 hours and plenty of time to save everyone. Also, if that was not enough, the inertia of reverse would push water forward and out, and the rush of water passing by the gashes would have also created suction outward, extending its survival even longer. If the extension was also an hour, the Titanic would have met up with Carpathia in plenty of time before its demise, saving all 1,496 that perished from hypothermia. Very interesting. Like, I never thought about that. That's the first time I thought about like a ship having damage to the front and then going in reverse, and that being an attempt to try to keep it afloat long enough for rescue. I'm like, that might have worked. Who knows? All right, so sorry about that little detour. Just like I said, always been fascinated by the topic that is Titanic. But so tonight's topic, um, people throwing the weight around, trying to force their decisions on other people, even when it really doesn't pay off for them. And basically, the inspiration for that is kind of um, the, I guess, other family that we deal with when it comes to the grand kiddo. The baby daddy and his current wife, which both unemployed, and they both live with his parents, and I think they do DoorDash, but like she did I think she was working at PetSmart for a little bit. And so we're like, oh, cool, at least one of them's working, but she worked there for like 4 months, and then it was like, well, I had to quit my job because, I have to work on my mental health. And I'm like, wow, really? It must be nice. Because like a lot of us, too many bills, too many responsibilities, we don't have that option. We can't just, we're just gonna quit, 'cause we're gonna just do counseling and work on our health, work on our our mental health or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's gonna suck whenever they because the baby daddy's parents aren't exactly young by any means, and so eventually those two, the baby daddy and the stepmom, are going to be out on their own, and it's going to be interesting because they wouldn't be able to handle it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future whenever the inevitable, because people, we're all destined for the same destination. None of us are gonna live forever, so we will see. But so last week was my oldest daughter's birthday, and on that day, well, actually, technically prior to that day, because the grand kiddo stays over at the other house Friday. Like, he goes over for like an overnight with him, and then they bring him back by like 6:30 a Saturday. So Saturday, when they brought him back, and they also have this thing for like, they scheduled with the grand kiddo, kind of a counseling, but it's like therapy, but it's friendship group or something. I don't know. But they started it a little bit, like probably middle-ish to the beginning of last month. Go until around the time that, and that's one thing I can talk about here too, now that I've officially broke the news to my boss. We actually are going to be relocating from where we're at down here out near out to the Kansas and Missouri state line, pretty much. So it'll be a little bit east of Kansas City, which be a lot closer to family, be close to my wife's mother and sister and brother-in-law and stuff, and half the distance to my parents. So like from here, we're like 800 miles from my parents. Out there, we're roughly about 400. So thankfully, we got approved for a rental house out there that's more bedrooms than what we have in our current apartment, and we'll be paying about the same as what we pay here. It's one of those things. It's one of those, like, we don't want to leave. Like, we've been here in Nashville for 10 years, and we love it here. It's just housing costs are freaking insane, and every week we deal with the other household, and that by itself is just stressful. So, but so last week, when they were like a week ago from last Saturday, so it's been a little over a week, the stepmom brought, well, technically the bio dad, he tries to be all like tries to act like a dad, by being active in the group chat. Oh, we're on our way, blah blah blah. Hey, and then try to be, hey Bubba, hey, oh my God, Daddy loves you. Like, yeah, you're totally put on a show. But he says, oh, we're on our way, and then it's always a stepmom that brings the grandkiddo up to the door, or comes up to get him. He never comes up, stays in the car because terrified of me, terrified of my wife, definitely terrified of his ex, my daughter. So just stays in the car and doesn't come up. So so she comes up to the door with him to drop him off, and the grandkiddo comes in, of course. They're like, hey buddy boy, give him hugs, whatever, and like, all right, go grab one of your drinks out of the little hugs or whatever out of the mini fridge, and Mama's upstairs, go ahead and head up. Yeah, okay. Of course, the stepmom's always like, before you go upstairs, can I get hugs and kisses? Like, literally, like, demands them, when she's dropping them off. So before you go, can I get hugs and kisses? We're always just like roll our eyes because we're like, you can't be like you kind of force them every time you drop them off to give you hugs and kisses. It's like, we don't have to do it. Like, he literally runs up to us and just, Papa, Nana. It's I mean, yeah, there's times where, hey baby boy, come here, because we've had a lot more time with him over the years than they have. Like, he's lived with us, with my daughter or whatever, so I guess we're closer, and we things are just different with us, and I'll cover that a little bit. But so she comes up to the door, and of course the grandkiddo goes ahead and runs upstairs, and my wife, of course, is on the couch because we were just watching something, watching a movie or something. But the stepmom, of course, says, "All right, well, I'll see you guys on Wednesday." And I'm thinking, okay, cool. Like, maybe they're automatically figuring that since it's my daughter's birthday on Tuesday, that she probably wants to hang out with her son and blah blah blah. So I was like, oh yeah, that works. That works great because Allie's birthday's Tuesday. I'm sure she wants to hang out with him. And she goes, oh crap, oh yeah, well that's right. We have the thing on Tuesday, the friendship group. So actually, we'll be by her to pick him up at 3:45. And I was like, Natalie, like that's Allie's birthday. Like, she probably is gonna want to hang out with her son. Are you sure that it's that he can't? It's not. That it'll be an issue with him just not going that day. Oh, he can't skip it because there's a financial penalty if he doesn't attend. And I'm like, huh, okay. So she's like, so we'll be by Tuesday 3:45, blah blah blah. And then she leaves. Me and my wife kind of look at each other. We're like, so that was kind of bitchy. Like, she didn't even want to take no for an answer, and it was just like, well, so yeah, that's not gonna work for us. And she's like, well, we'll have him back by 6:30, and that's when we usually celebrate birthdays at our house, like after that point anyway. And we're like, yeah, but this isn't your house, this is ours. So I was like, I didn't say anything more. We just let her walk away, and I talked to my daughter about it, and I was like, so you have a chat with you and your ex and his wife. I was like, I'm gonna let you handle that because you're mom, and this is obviously, he's in your custody, it's your decision, so I'm gonna let you make that decision. And she's like, oh, okay. So the next day, of course, I get home late, mid to late morning from work, and I'm laying down to go to bed, and I guess because that was actually Allie's birthday. So Allie decided to keep him home from school because they were going to pick him up from school and just take him to the thing and then bring him back at 6:30. And there was no question. It was just, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're doing. Even though we're like, it's Allie's birthday, we kind of want to keep him home. They were like, no, we can't do it. He has to go, blah, blah, blah. We're really sorry. And it was like, so my daughter went on there and basically was like, yeah, well, she actually didn't say anything. She just kept him home from school. And then like an hour or two later, after school started, the stepmom went on there on the chat basically and was like, "Well, since we know since Alex didn't attend school, um, we'll be by at 3:45 to pick him up, blah blah blah." And of course, my daughter popped in and she goes, "Actually, since it's my birthday and I really don't want to didn't want to not see him all day, and we do birthday stuff all day. We're just gonna keep him home, you know, kind of don't want him to miss out on anything, whatever." So, that's what we're gonna do. And of course, the stepmom keeps like, "Well, yeah, and it's unfortunate that they're both on the same day, but like we said, we'll have him back by 6:30, so we'll be by 3:45 to pick him up." And I was like, totally not listening. They were totally not listening to her. Not even acknowledging, not even a happy birthday or anything. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I want. Oops, sorry. Just realized my my black cat. I guess she was right by my one of my feet. And I shifted and I felt like I kind of bumped her. Not really kick, but I bumped her and I felt her jump. I was like, "Oops, sorry, Beaks." I was like, didn't even see you there. You're kind of blended in with the carpet and the floor because it's dark too. But so I was like, I popped in there. Basically, I was like, "So Natalie, I'm going to try to keep this as civil as possible." And actually, while I'm doing this, because hey, perfect to go ahead and do it on a live episode, to go ahead and just read it to you guys specifically. Gotta scroll through my text messages though. Hold on one second. Trying to find it real quick. I'm like, where you at? Okay. There's the thread. Now I gotta scroll up. Alright, so and I'm pretty sure I already told my buddy Dave Goldberg, kind of read this message, I believe. But if I didn't, hey, hope, if he's listening, he'll be able to hear it. So I said, actually, I'll go up again. So the stepmom, since the graying kiddo since Alex was absent from school today, we'll be by at 3:45 to pick him up for his friendship skills class. My daughter says it's my birthday. I kept him out. I'm sorry for any inconveniences, but we celebrate all day because it takes all day to set up and do. As well as many plans are in place that I don't want him to miss out on. Especially don't want to wait all day to see my son on my birthday. The stepmom, I appreciate that, and I'm sorry they line up on the same day. I get that sucks, but friendship skills is a 7-week course, and him missing that much wouldn't be inconsequential. Again, it's not all day. We'll be by at 3:45 to pick him up, and he'll be back at 6:30ish at the latest. And I was kind of pissed at this point reading this. I'm going, she's not even like listening to her. So I was like, so in the spirit of trying to keep things civil, I'm going to do my best with this. Natalie, there are a few things that bug both Aaron and I. One, when I mentioned it was Allie's birthday, you didn't acknowledge it at all. Not that you absolutely have to, but it would have been appreciated on our end because it is a special day. And two, it feels like despite the fact that Allie has expressed her wishes to keep him home today, you have been forceful, almost demanding that we abide by your schedule. We understand that Tuesday appointments are important. However, I simply request that you please take a step back and honor Allie's wishes. So, based on what Allie has expressed both here and to us personally, the importance of what today is definitely takes priority over other plans. Missing today will not be the end of the world. So with that being said, y'all have a great rest of your day, and we'll just see y'all tomorrow. Again, try my best to not come across attacking or whatever when writing this. My apologies if there was any offense, as it was not intended. Again, have a great day, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. No response. I'm not, from that at all. Of course, I did a screenshot and basically like in our family chat with me, my wife, my oldest, my youngest, and my oldest, her boyfriend, because he was coming up for her birthday too. So, oh crap! Literally had the message up, and then I exited out and went back. So now I'm scrolling back up on the. Let's see. All right, so I said, hope what I wrote to Natalie's demanding sounded okay. Shake my head. Quote, we'll pick him up at 3:45. No, you won't. Door will be locked. And my youngest, who we're gonna call Bug, because that nickname, says Natalie can wait. I said, here, Bug, screenshots of some of the messages between Sissy and Natalie. And then, of course, about the 3:45 pickup, and my oldest say about the birthday, and we're gonna keep him out, blah blah blah. And then here's what Natalie said, and I was like, and here's what I said, since you're not in the in the other chat. Basically just copy and pasted the spirit of keeping things simple, blah blah blah. And I said, okay, I'm gonna try to sleep a bit. I gotta grab some water, and I saw Natalie's message. It kind of pissed me off. Bug said, yeah, no, her response to Sissy was bitchy. I would have been much meaner than you, Dad. My wife, I agree, it pissed me off as well. I think what Daddy replied with was very respectful. Who knows how they will react, though. And of course, my oldest daughter finally popped in. She was applause all around. I just saw everything. I just saw everything else, but I want to add, notice how the her ex, the baby daddy, she was, notice how he hasn't said a thing. It's all Natalie. And of course, my wife, like, of course he's so involved. I'm like, well, I'm not surprised, because when I woke up that afternoon, I was like, well, I'm not surprised by the no response, but at the same time, would have kind of hoped that Natalie or Sam's parents would have replied, even just oh, okay, happy birthday, Allie, but crickets. Oh well. So it's like, but so we just kind of like, that's the thing with him. Like, I've tried to pop in there before and try to kind of tell the bio dad and the stepmom, because they've kind of done stupid shit in the past too, where they've dropped, like, me and my wife, we were out and about, and of course my youngest was here, but she was upstairs, and they're like, we're on our way, and of course I was like, can you guys get a Happy Meal or something? Like, we're 15 minutes away, or we'll get there. And of course they're like, oh, we dropped them off. So basically, like, my youngest happened to be downstairs, and they caught her, and they just dropped them off with her. And I went off of them in the chat, basically like, what the hell, guys? Like, yeah, my youngest is totally, like, she's 17, she could totally watch him, but I had asked you guys to hold off because we're on our way. We'll be right there. We didn't want you to just drop them off with the teenager. And I found out through a very big argument with the other family, with Sam's parents and whatnot. It's like, yeah, Sam and Natalie have Chris blocked. They've both had him blocked for a while because they don't appreciate the way he talks to them or whatever. And I'm like, I talk to them like they're fucking dumbasses, because that's kind of what they are. So it's like, but. And I'm trying to refrain from saying, mention names too much and say too much about them, as far as, like, certain complaints about them, just because I know, hey, we're on a podcast, trying to keep it somewhat civil. But that right there, I blew up, and that the other grandmother for whatever reason, had this impression that she was like, she messaged my wife in an attempt to control me. Like, well, they blocked Chris because, you know, he, like, and I'm about to block him too because he's really disrespectful when he talks to us and blah, blah, blah. And you need to, like, we need to just deal with you, me, and Allie and not have him involved. Of course, my wife was like, that's not how this worked. She was telling, like, literally, she's getting the messages from her and she's telling me, like, right when it happens. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I go in the group chat with it's supposed to be us, the other grandparents, and Sam and Nat. And of course, I was like, well, first of all, Sam and Nat, like, you guys need to unblock me now. Like, this is a family chat between the two families so that we can coordinate, you know, like, pickups and drop-offs with the grandkiddo. And it's kind of hard to do that if, you know, two of the quote-unquote parents, you know, parental figures for the grandkiddo have me blocked because I didn't say, you know, I didn't use, quote, kind words. And I'm saying, like, those are actual words that the other grandmother used. Like, you need to use kind words with our son because, you know, like, we're trying to build him up. Like, it's not my job to build this 27-year-old kid that still lives with you. It's not my job to build him up. Like, you guys should have prepared him for the actual real world. So, but, oh yeah. So, and then I was like, and, you know, back to the other grandma, not gonna, you know, try to not mention her name or whatever. But I was like, so I mentioned her by name on the message and was like, and that's, you know, bullshit. Like you going to my wife expecting that you could bypass me. I was like, that's not how this works. Like, we're all in here. We're all caregivers to the grandkiddo, you know, and so we all need to be able to communicate in here. And, you know, if you guys can't do that, then you guys just won't see him because it's gonna be too much of a hassle, too much stress for him to even come over there, you know. So both Nat and Sam, oh Chris, all right Chris, we unblocked you. We now got you unblocked. We can see your messages. I'm like, all right, cool, you know. So when I sent that message about you know, her not even listening to my daughter or me, and basically, well, we'll be by to pick him up at 3:45. No, you fucking won't, because, you know, like, we're not gonna answer the door. Like, we told you, like, this is, you know, a birthday. Like, we understand you have an appointment scheduled with him, but this is an important family day, and, you know, we've kind of expressed that to you, and to get blown off, it's like, all right, so if we reverse that and you said, like, it would have been different. It would have been like, we have this planned for him, you know, for him to be home today. And if we were like, oh no, he has this appointment that he has to go to, like, we'll be by to get him and take him to that appointment, and they'd be like, well, no, we really want to just keep him home. Like, no, he has to go. No, that's not the, you know, it wouldn't go over so well. so surprisingly, or not surprisingly, I guess, never heard anything from her or Sam, you know. It's like, well, I guess giving first names isn't as big a deal because I'm not giving, like, a last name or whatever. So it's probably other Sam and Natalie's out there, you know. But so yeah, so that's kind of, you could say, over the past, like, probably 6 months, we've kind of been researching and looking at places, like looking at places online, and trying to figure out, like, all right, well, we, you know, eventually the idea was to move from this apartment and try to find something that's better, you know, has more space for us, and you know, hopefully get a house. But the wife, of course, was dead set on being able to buy a house, but yeah, but credit wise, we're not gonna be there for a little bit. And I happened to find a housing community up there in Kansas City, or just east of it, that actually was, like, new build, I guess. And it had not just enough bedrooms, but it had, like, talking like not just like 4 bedrooms, but like 3 bathrooms, 2-car garage, backyard, whatever. And it showed like the rent amount was maybe about $100 more than what we're paying here for this 3-bedroom townhome. And it's a house. So I was like, it's one of those where you figure if you don't try, then the answer is always no. So I was like, so I paid the deposit, or paid the deposit and the application fee. Figured, well, we'll try. So I got my wife and my oldest, since everybody over 18 has to actually be an applicant, and then anybody below that can still be on the lease as an occupant. But anybody above it has to actually submit all their stuff. So, got all the information from them, sent them the links for the application. My wife and my daughter applied. I filled out my stuff since I was the main applicant, put all the financial stuff in there, and applied. And of course, we're talking like not just the $300 or $300 or $400 like application fee, but then $1,000 deposit. And I was messaging the community, the management, basically being like, so what happens if we get denied? Because I said, that's $1,000 deposit you're having me pay. I can't afford just to be out that money. Oh, no. If you get denied, then you get that refund. Like, okay, cool. I was like, I could live with that. So went ahead and paid the $1,400 total up front initially. Submitted the application. Then it was like, all right. And it was probably about a week later when I actually got an email saying, congratulations, you're approved. And basically the only stipulation was either we had to get a cosigner or we had to pay another $1,200 deposit. I said, I'll pay the $1,200 deposit. So it's like, I was like, let me know how to get that paid. I was like, I'll take that option. They're, all right, cool. So we signed the lease. We have a moving date. We have an address. So it's like, cool. What my wife was wanting us to, my wife was hoping that we'd be able to do, and my mother-in-law was like, you guys need to find jobs before you guys find a place to live. And I'm like, it's probably not going to work, because we've done it a couple times before where, one of us got a job where we were trying to move, and then they went out there and we were separated for months before we finally were able to get everyone else out there. And I'm like, I didn't want to do that. I kind of wanted I wanted to get out there and have a place and then find work, like, all right, this is our address. Now we just need to get hired somewhere. Which, for me as a driver, I'm not too worried about that. I know being out there and having an address will definitely help my wife too, because she's, a chef, and there are restaurants she's talked to out there. They all have the same issue, that she's down here, not up there. So working on getting things arranged and scheduled for that. So I already have like a moving company that's going to be moving us, going to be here packing us up and moving us 2 or 3 days prior to when we can officially move in. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be, it's like the initial plan before I officially talked to my boss a couple of days ago was to basically probably have my last day at my current job on like the 1st, and then be off for a couple days, be like 3 or 4 days before they come, because they're coming on like the 4th and the 5th to move us. So it was like, that was the plan initially, was get my notice, be off, be done on the 1st. They'd start packing us up on the 4th, so I'd probably be like, get a couple nights at a different hotels scheduled and paid for ahead of time or something. Be out at least a hotel probably on the 5th and 6th, but might be 3 days, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Probably the hotel like right down the street from us, it's brand new, for the 4th. And then we put notice in with our complex that we'd be out by the close of business on the 5th. And so probably go part way towards Kansas City on the 5th and stop, part way there, and then get like really close on the 6th, and of course stop and have another night in a hotel, then show up on the 7th, be able to to actually officially like start the moving process. So looking forward to it. It'll be it'll be a nice change. I think a big part of it is the stress that we've been dealing with the other family, because you know we've all expressed we're like we love it here in Tennessee. It's not the issue. Like it's the I think a big part of it. Well, one is the housing cost, because down here it's like for us to get a house that we're getting that's the size up there down here would easily cost us like quite a bit more as far as rent goes, and would be like $500K if we were to buy it. Up there though, I'm getting a lot of because I'm connected with a realtor out there, even though I'm not in a position to buy it, but she's always sending me listings every week, and I'm getting listings at 4 and 5 bedrooms for houses that are like 185 to like 260,000, and I'm like, I like those prices a lot better than down here. So now it's just the process of just making the plans. We've already already got a moving company scheduled. I had to pay half the cost. It's like $3,200, so I pay like I think I pay like $1,800, no, $1,600, and got it scheduled, and now we just have to pay the other half. I pay like $800 when they pick it up and $800 when they deliver, and that we already got what our first month's rent plus the extra fees is going to be. Instead of the $2,300, it's going to be like $3,200 because of the deposit and the pet fees and whatnot. So because it's prorated for that first month, so the rent itself is like more like 17 or 1,800 versus the 23, since we're moving in on the 7th. So yeah, getting all that figured out, and officially I talked to the boss on Friday. Went ahead and called him and kind of wanted to break it to him in a way where it's basically like, hey, is it possible to relocate out of state to another hub and still drive for this company? And he's like, oh, technically, why? I'm like, well, because my wife and I got approved for a 4-bedroom rental house out there east of Kansas City, Missouri, and it's not till the first week of June, which is why I'm talking to you about it now. And if it's not possible, I'll definitely give you official notice 2 weeks out, so that way stay in good terms or whatever. But if it is possible, then we'd love to just transition out that way and keep driving for who I'm driving for currently, and not have to switch jobs, since we have the issue with our health insurance deductible with my wife. She's done a lot of stuff, like a couple surgeries and whatnot this year, so deductible has been fully covered, and so a lot of stuff that she has to do, like meds and whatnot, is free right now. So we're like, cool, all right. So plus it would just be easier not having to go out there and officially actually find a job if I'm just already employed, and just at a different hub, be like, all right, cool, that transition was easy. So according to him though, he's like, yeah, it should be like, I have connections in Kansas City, Missouri, and it should be possible. Like, there shouldn't be an issue. I was like, all right, cool. Kind of chatted with him a little bit today through text. Basically was like, so just let me know if it's not going to be possible, so that way I can. Sorry about that thump. I kind of just had an itch, and of course I bumped the microphone. Like, oops, sorry about that. So if you heard it, that was me going to like itch the side of my face, and my hand thumped the side of the microphone. It's like, oop, crap, sorry. But so yeah, I was like, just let me know, because if it's not possible, then I just want to make sure that I give you guys official notice, because on the off chance that we eventually were to come back to Tennessee down the road, it would be nice to basically just get back in touch with you guys and come back on board with this company. And he's like, oh yeah, well, he's like, oh, it shouldn't be a problem. We have there's runs that we can get you on out there, so it shouldn't be an issue. It's like, all right, cool. I was like, do you know what truck you would put out there? Or he's like, no, not yet. It depends on the runs that will go in the truck. Okay. So I was like, well. So I felt a little bit better after talking to him, because I was like, all right, cool. That was what I was stressing out about for a while. But then I had trouble sleeping that day, because even though I talked to him, I was stressing afterwards. You know, had some like really, really like wicked dreams or whatever, and it's like, oh man. So, but yeah, it's all good. You know what they say. It is what it is. But at least it's all everything's in motion. Like my wife she had told her boss. My daughter apparently there's a funny story about her telling her boss is like her boss I guess stalks the cameras at times, and so like she was looking through the different recordings and stuff, and I guess my daughter had been talking about the move, and so I guess her boss actually came and talked to her and basically said, "Are you moving?" She's like, "Oh yeah." I was writing a note actually. I was going to talk to you more officially on it, but hadn't gotten around to it yet. So, but I guess her boss is cool with it because she's a pretty good worker, and it's not like she just up and left, but it's all out in the open. Now my boss knows. So, and we had the stress with our current complex because previous leases had a little stipulation in there that you had to give, if you're leaving and breaking your lease, that you had to give 2 months notice. And one of them I remember said that you had to pay like a $4,000 lease termination fee, and I was like, crap. I was like, how are we gonna pull that off? And, we got everything. We gave notice with our complex. We paid that month's rent, and this current month's rent has been covered, and there's not, knock on wood, there's not been another fee added. So I'm like, oh cool, so that's nice. So hopefully we'll just get out of here without any issues. So it's all good. But anyway, y'all, I'm sure I talked your ear off enough tonight. Still got a few things gotta do before crashing tonight and getting ready for the work week. Gotta go switch laundry over to the dryer. Kind of cheated because I think my daughter had a load in the washer that hadn't started yet. She just had clothes in there, hadn't started the wash yet, so I kind of pulled those out, put them on the table temporarily, threw mine and my wife's load in the washer. Figured I'll put that over to the dryer, and then throw my daughter's stuff and my grandson's stuff in the wash, to kind of get those started and whatnot. Then maybe when I get ready to go upstairs to go to bed, I'll of course grab our clothes and move her clothes over to the dryer and be like, all right, cool, I did your laundry. So, but anyway, you know what I always say, guys, keep pushing forward, keep believing, believe you can, believe you will, and you're already halfway there, and then you just have to go out there and do it. And also, we never fail, as long as we only fail if we quit, give up, and walk away. So as long as every time you get knocked down, if you keep getting back up, keep pushing forward, you haven't failed. Even if it takes you years to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, then just keep at it. But on that note, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to talking to you guys when we do the next story on Story Time Friday. You guys have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you then, and have a good one.